My background as an artist started when I was very young. I used to color to impress my parents and my family, and pictures of our house and our dog and our car, whatever. And whenever people would ooh and ah over how exacting it was, that, it gave me pleasure, and that's probably why I started being an artist. I worked in graphics since 1984. Before that, I was a paste-up artist, and my very first job was at Hershey Park, painting people. I really wanted to be a studio artist and just paint and ceramic and create all day. And I got as far as I could away from graphics, and I started having, some success selling my work, and I was showing in shows in Reading and Lancaster and different places where I could find group shows or things that were entry shows. And started meeting the art community, and I heard about Goggleworks. So Goggleworks is a whole city block where art happens, not just studio artists, also classrooms, glass blowing facilities, ceramics, all kinds of things that you can do in art. And there's wood shop, everything. And of course, I was there 6 years. 3 years into that, I ran into another artist from Boyertown, and we started talking about having a gallery in Boyertown. And that's when I had this, I would love to ride my bike down the hill and go to a gallery in Boyertown, even if I had to start the gallery myself. I've been in Boyertown since 1996. There was a wealth of old houses in the area that were for sale, and we are old house people. And there was a lovely old house sitting at the top of the hill here, and we renovated that over the years and are still living there. My husband and I like to walk around the block, and we met our neighbor Connie Heil, who was toll painting at the time, and she said, oh yeah, there's, of course we're looking for some select antiques for our old house. And she said, oh, there's this art sale up the road. And we went to the art sale, and they had a map, and you could go to all these different studios and antique shops, and it was a mix of artists and antiques. And I was like, who knew? It's right here in our neighborhood. It's a wealth of artists living up in my area specifically that I didn't even know I was choosing that, when we were all drawn to something there. So Studio B came about because this other artist and I thought we would create this place to go and see art in Boyertown. And she and I worked hard together to find a location that was Main Street friendly and where people could come and go for openings or classes or whatever. And she was a teacher, and I was already a studio artist. So we both had ideas about the building, and we found this space. And after we started painting the space and doing all the hard work that makes a gallery, I guess she decided, and she had little kids and she was working full time and she was a single mom, that it was too much for her. And so I about 3 hours out of that letter, which was broadcast to the whole group, Jane walked in the door.
Well, this whole thing started for me in junior high school when my family took a trip to Massachusetts and we visited Rockport. And I fell in love with the place. It's a little seaside town and an art colony. And then when I got connected with my husband, who is an artist, I said, we have to visit Rockport. You're absolutely going to love it. And he loved it too. So we decided back then, even before we were married, that when we retired, we would move to Rockport. So back to Boyertown, where both he and I grew up, went to high school together and whatnot. And I taught there, retired in 2005, but knew then that there was no way we were going to retire in Rockport. So I figured at that point, if I was going to live in an artistic town, I'd have to build one. So as a result of the Bear Fever Project, I met a bunch of artists, and I could write and I could talk. And so I knew I could do that, and I like to do that, so I thought, I will do that for the area's artists. It triggered the possibility that maybe I could bring some artists together for an exhibit. And my friends were selling the Lincoln School, elementary school, up the street, and I thought that would be a perfect location to hold this exhibit. So we staged an art exhibit there that year, and people absolutely loved it. So I met with Charles Haddad, who's the patriarch of Boyertown as far as I'm concerned. And I asked him if Building a Better Boyertown could umbrella an Arts and Activities Alliance so that I could write for funding as part of a 501c3. We had some, walking tours around town. Different businesses hosted different artists around town, served wine and cheese, and once again, I felt the community was responsive to having art shows and art exhibits. Well, one thing led to another. Charles helped them find a space. Charles helped them find some funding for their first year's rent. And as it happened, Sue's friend, teaching full-time, decided that also running a studio was a little bit more than she could do as a single mom. So she stepped out, and I thought, oh my God, do we have to give back the grant money that Charles had found if the studio closes immediately? And so, not wanting that to happen, I walked in the door and Sue looked at me and I said, look, I will help you until you find somebody else. Here we are, 13 years later. So,
I can tell you that one of the things that in my heart of having this gallery was that I already had a studio at the time, and I knew that my time was limited because I had a kid. Mm-hmm. And I also wanted to help our other artists promote themselves. Mm-hmm. And I knew that with my graphics background, I was capable of being promotional. As an English teacher, Jane is capable of writing correctly, because I can write, but I can stammer on without a period. Mm-hmm. And so basically, I knew that together we would be able to promote these artists. And it's one of those things I've noticed about my fellow artists is that they do not promote themselves properly, because artists are really honest, straightforward people who want to come by their success naturally. And so they really don't want to talk about their work necessarily. They want you to see their work and experience it. So when we got together, I thought it was interesting because I would just come up with like a layout and I would send it over to Jane for correction. And she was so complimentary. Never once have I ever felt like an idiot when you said, there should be a comma here and a parentheses there and move the period or whatever. You're really good at that, and that's why you're everyone's favorite teacher. Yeah. And I learn something new from you every day. So I think that's one of the things that makes it a precious relationship.
It's been a fun ride, okay? You call me your mom. I am just such a fan of everything you are capable of doing. I mean, we're not just talking about art, we're talking about fixing everything. In fact, one of my favorite memories is when you told me your nickname. Somebody nicknamed you MacGyver.
Not necessarily that I'm a MacGyver that does things correctly, but I do rig things. So I'm good at rigging things. Sue-rigged, Bob likes to call it.
Exactly.
But I'm like, it only has to be good for a month. That's when we would have 1 month shows. And now I'm up to 2.5 months for this year.
I mean, the graphics design part of you, obviously, the ability to motivate and inspire artists to come here and showcase with us. I mean, the fact that you flit all over the place and
Such
have
a good word for me, flit.
hundreds and hundreds of artist friends. I mean, your gift of being able to mount a show is, everybody talks about that, how you put things together when we have intake and stuff is along the walls, and I think to myself, oh my God, what is she going to do with all these diverse styles and these diverse content? And yet when I come in the next day after you've spent a few hours just kind of hammering away, the whole gallery becomes a piece of art.
When that work shows up and I see people, first of all, they pay to enter a juried show, or they pay as a solo artist or a group or something like that. They pay the rent, which is what it costs to
That's right.
have a show here. And So I feel like I have to give my all to their efforts because I know how I feel about my work. I feel like the artists are my family, and I want people to feel that I've honored their efforts.
We have such a great support system in our businesses and our individuals who have been with us from day one. And one of the things you invented very early is our Beamer Club, in which we acknowledge those folks who have given substantive donations to us by having their names on the ceiling beams of Studio B. So we have those folks, and we have folks who contribute $25 a year. We have major donors who contribute a whole lot more than that, but we're grateful for each and every one of them. And we're also very grateful for the folks who have contributed their time.
Right now things are different, but really in a lot of reality, the structure is still those people who are willing to be here when we can't.
Right.
And, or, want to have a class, want to teach history, which is what Bob does. I mean, we've had so many different things. In 13 years, we've had weddings in this space and all kinds of things. Yeah.
One of my favorite memories was the wedding that we had in here. I mean, this place transforms itself into all kinds of things. People come and give workshops, and we have classes for children and adults. And the painting parties that we do.
Well, that's blossomed into a whole nother thing for me.
I know.
But yeah.
There's just so many things we have done and tried to be part of the community. So as you have said, the community continues to support us. And that's been really important.
If we can continue to have the membership, the community support, and able to have at least 4 real openings a year, this place may turn out to be the best little gallery that does.
That does.
We call ourselves the Little Gallery Does, especially since there's a train in town now. I saw the structure and I knew I could hang halogen lights from it and make it look gallery-like, and I knew it had that Soho style, like it was yellow, and it was the GR8 party store. And essentially I knew everything had to be painted white, and then we needed a hardwood floor, and that was the basis for the entire choosing of this space. We had a full gallery the first show, and I was blown away that people were willing to come in. And
well, we had it during the Holiday House Tour,
which I knew that would help too.
Over 500 people.
And the funny thing about that was, I remember being in this back corner, and someone wanted to buy a painting, and I had to go out the back door and come in the front door to get the price off of it, and then go back out this way. And when I was out front, I looked through the window,
I know what you're gonna say.
And the sticker that had been removed that said GR8 Party Store was real evident because of the steam on the window from all the human beings breathing in and out in here. Yeah. We won't see that again for a while. I was really negative. I was. When we first got involved, because I'm a little bit of a germaphobe too. And I thought no one is going to want to be in this teeny tiny space. In the meantime, Jane came up with the idea of doing Facebook Live, and Jane, in her positive manner, pivoted and started this whole Facebook Live thing with the help of Amy Musapapa. And I think that it may be her saving grace.
Well, yeah. I mean, it was tough at the very beginning, knowing how frightened you were and negative. Fortunately, what happened was, we got some random sales. Sue put up a virtual exhibit.
Yeah, I came up with that idea.
Brilliant.
Yeah, that was actually, I have to say, I'm riding on the back of another. There was an open mic in Reading that had been running for years, and wow, I'm going to do that with art. And that's where that came from, that idea.
Well, that was brilliant.
Yeah, and it's running like crazy.
And, you had suggested that I came up with this idea of Friday Night Lives, and I came up with that because Amy Musapapa said to me, Jane, you should consider. And so when she said that to me, my first thought was, it sounds like a lot of work. I can't do that by myself. And she said, I'll help you, because I have found in her energy, it lies mine. I mean, we have that same kind of positivity, that same kind of let's do this, let's take a risk, let's have a good time, and I respond to that. And so I have to credit Amy for inspiring me in this. And at the same time, I had started just the end of January, it's a year now that I started the Be Inspired podcast as a result of a friend of mine, Bill Vitiello, who was doing a podcast, and I thought, I like to talk. You may have noticed that. And so the podcast, the audio podcast that I do, has been a whole lot of fun for me. And I've gotten a chance to get to know more about community members and community leaders and writers and artists. I've just had a really good time doing that. It was the virtual tour. People saw art on that virtual tour, bought art, and
Yep.
then the other part was some of our donors sent us money just because they must
knew.
have intuited
They knew.
that if we didn't have the support, we wouldn't continue. And
would go
it was
away.
just those tiny little things that convinced me at the time that people really did value what we did and wanted us to continue.
I remember when the first sale went, and the person they called me, and I was stuck in Rehoboth because you had to stay 14 days, which I couldn't have complained about. But they called and they said, "But this so and so wants this piece, and da 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 da." And here, the artist was in Wilmington, and I couldn't believe the artist. And we had these shows here, we had worldwide shows. We had artists come from all over the world and exhibit in a couple of shows that our friend Emily Branch curated or sort of wrote the prospectus for the first one, and Knock, the gallery person for that, curated the show. And she has artists from all over the world that she's carrying around in her suitcase, and those artists became connected with Studio B as the American segment for her worldwide
Circus
show.
Terminal. Yep.
And beautifully, she picked up about 30 local artists, myself as well, that she included in her suitcase and took our art to, after that, 28 countries too. So that virtual Facebook group is part of those people that came along from her. I mean, our connection with Knock is huge.
There's so many other stories to tell. We have such a great time, and we're always inventing something new. We've served over 700 artists. We've served hundreds of students. We've been in the community to offer thousands and thousands of community members an opportunity to be involved in the arts or to enjoy the arts in some kind of way, and we're very proud of that. We have no idea what's happening in the future, but we do know. But we've got ideas all over the place to do one thing or another, and
We're going to be here somehow.
somehow,
Even if we can't pay the rent here, we'll have art in the park.
we're just constantly figuring out ways to
Promote the arts.
showcase the art and showcase the people who support us. That's my newest effort.
And we're really just here to have a good time.
Yeah.
So
And we have a good time.